Broadcasting live from the Shire near in Hobbiton. Hang on. I can't remember the name of the Earth. Is it Arth? Ad Earth?
Hang
on.
All of this information has left my brain.
Yeah.
Middle Earth.
Which I guess shows that I'm kind of done with this set.
Yeah.
Arda. That's
Arda.
Arda.
Broadcasting live from the Shire on the plain of Arda. This is Tap Tap Concede. Welcome everybody to Tap Tap Concede. My name is Graham, and joining me this week we have Cameron and Wheeler.
Thank you for having me, Graham. It's great to be here.
Excellent. This is the first thing that we're shooting on the brand new Moonbase Mark 6 AFK Studio C set, which hopefully looks very closely modeled after the previous one because we did a lot of work to bring all the stuff over. Though I would say the shelves look nicer now than they did before because they were actually, put together with intention rather than just like slowly over the course of many years. Today we're going to be talking about Lord of the Rings, but perhaps with some differing opinions. Maybe, I don't know, we'll find out together. This show, and of course everything we do here at Loading Ready Run, is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. And this show in particular is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Please check out cardkingdom.com/LRR for all of your cardboard needs. I was talking to them recently, actually. They've improved their deck builder tool, which if you've never used this, you might have used this actually because there's links on like Moxfield or Goldfish or whatever. But if you go to cardkingdom.com/LRR to get our affiliate code on there, which lets them know that we sent you, you can go to their deck builder tool, paste in a deck list, and then it'll go, oh, okay, here's all the cards. We found them all. You can set filters for like quality or specific variants that you might desire, and then you can go, yes, add that to the cart, and just add an entire deck to the cart. You can be like, if you've got multiples, I want them all to be the same printing, that kind of thing. They said that they did a 500. It was a 550 card cube. It took 12 seconds for the deck builder to be like, here you go. Cool. Here's the cube for you to order. Wow. So they've really increased how quickly you can give them money for cards.
What an age we live in.
I know, isn't it great?
Yeah.
And of course you can tell them that we sent you and ask for a button, and they'll give you a little 1-inch button, which I think currently we're still on. I think we're just Dan here, which is the kind of thing that we enjoy because very silly. Now, last week on the podcast, it was myself, Kathleen, and Nelson remotely talking about Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, Universes Beyond, Richard Garfield game, Magic the Gathering, etc., etc. And we were talking about the draft format and how we were, sort of enjoying it. And from internal discussions, not to put too fine a point on it, not everyone has been enjoying it maybe as much as we had. And I wanted to talk about that because we don't generally speaking, I would say inside the building here at Loading Ready Run, we are fairly unified on our reads of various draft formats, and not this time. And I thought that'd be interesting. I'm not saying I'm not going to just sort of be like they both don't like it, because Cameron sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, medium on it, and Wheeler's doesn't love it.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything for me and actively makes me feel like I'm wasting my time. But not, hate is such a strong word for something that it's just like,
I would never say, yeah. So what don't you like about it, my guy?
It's really boring.
Really?
Huh.
I find it if I had to describe it, it feels like they tried to do a throwback to older core set styles of Limited, like M13, M14-ish era, but they're doing it with a product that they also want to push towards modern, if that makes sense. Like it's like if they're trying to remake one of those core sets with modern design principles.
I was going to say, this is to my mind, it's way complicated for a core set.
Yes.
Well, that's why I'm trying to anchor it to one of the later ones.
Right,
Of
okay.
like M14, M15.
When core sets were fun to draft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're trying to emulate that.
Okay.
Is my take from it. And I don't think they really hit that nail on the head. They do emulate it at one point where like black and red are the best things to do because your murder also tempts the ring, and your Chandra's outrage or deal 4 to a creature, 2 to them is like deal X to that thing and then kill all your little baby tokens or whatever. With fear
Fire.
tigers and bears, oh my.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, it's like fire.
Fear fire foes.
Okay, so X in a red sorcery. Damage can't be prevented this turn. Forgot about that. It deals X damage to target creature and 1 damage to each other creature with the same controller. Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
And like, not to say that formats with big fireballs or like removal. I guess what I should say before I get into that point is that I think overall, like the past 3 years or so of draft environments have been a series of 7.5s. And that's great because that means you can draft it, enjoy it, and then when you're sick of it, a new set is out. And that feels like it's by design, as opposed to from the earlier years, which maybe some people that didn't play during that era or they were just too young to really grasp how terrible draft environments could be.
It used to be bad.
Yeah.
Like you used to sometimes just get real bad draft environments with like a lot, and I mean like a lot of cards that were just like didn't really do anything interesting. It was just sort of like, why does this card exist?
So draft environments, much like draft decks, if you can aim to hit a 7.5 out of 10, like for every single release, that's good, right? That means you're going to get something that people will enjoy, but they don't mind leaving it behind to try something new.
Yeah.
And but in that era, there is also a trend of the limited deck of as much removal as possible is not as good as it used to be. Like it did used to be, you could just murder, volcanic hammer, kill other threats, and that's how you win a game of limited. That can still happen, but not as much, given either the power level of creatures bringing things with them, or I don't know, just so many things having ETBs or die triggers in this set, like the ring tempting you to set up one of your other little tokens that they might want to ignore, and then I can go the distance. But yeah, it feels just like not great. That's I mean, not to be a hater, although I am a professional hater. But
yeah, respect, absolutely.
yeah.
Hey, it's hard work, but someone's got to do it. Well, I mean, that's why I wanted to do this episode, because I mean, was this a mailbag? No, I was like, we were talking about it. We did just after we moved in here, we did like a off-camera draft. Remember when we used to play Magic without filming it? We did a draft here, just like, staff draft. There was like 6 of us, and you were talking about how much you were not having fun with the format. And
Sorry, no, that was a comment on the people I was playing with at the time.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
fair.
That's fair. Wah, wah. No, but
Me
you were.
too.
I've been really enjoying it. I find that I think it's very synergistic. I don't actually think green is the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to. Maybe we'll have an episode about this at some point. But we're gonna have at some point. We're gonna have to have a reckoning with what 17 Lands has done to public discourse.
Oh, it's terrible.
Because it's like oh, I like this card. This is a cool card. What a neat card this is. I think it works well for this deck. I'm going to take it. And then you get someone in chat being like, no, that's terrible. According to 17 Lands, the win rate on that card is awful, so you should not take it. We get to this point where like every set has to have a thing where it's like, oh, this color has the lowest of 5 win rates on 17 lands. Therefore, that color in this set is terrible. And it's like, no, it's actually not. Green has a lot of good stuff.
Also, just Go ahead.
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts on data-driven analysis as someone who has done some, and there's a difference between data and knowledge.
Yeah.
Struggling with it for a few thousand years.
Yep.
But yeah.
What were you gonna say?
It's just draft environments are pretty organic. Like the idea that it gets solved and therefore that is just like this code that everybody must follow.
That's the other thing that bugs me about this adherence among a segment of Spikes to this thing. By the way, no hate to 17 Lands itself or the people that run it, but this idea that, as you say before, draft environments over the course of their many months used to be much more organically developed, right? That it was sort of like, it started out sort of basic, and then people realized that some things and some synergies and some decks were better than others, and then it would kind of ebb and flow to like counteract that and develop over it. And now it's sort of like, this is what the numbers say, so it has to be this, and if you're not doing this, you're doing it wrong, and it's this until the end of the draft. When it's like, that's not even necessarily true either in some situations.
Yeah. I like data. I don't like...
That's the thing. I love data.
I don't like following it as just the be-all, end-all that, ignores so much of, like, the human ability and involvement, and also, like, maybe green is bad because people are building their green decks poorly. Like, or, like, green can be the worst color, but like you said, it, like... one of these colors has to be the worst color.
Yeah, one of them's always going to have a color is always going to have the lowest win rate of a set. It doesn't mean that it's like terrible. I've gone off topic, but I just got a big bug up my ass about this recently.
I mean, there are like the absolute limited sickos that draft on Magic Online, and that's how they make their living, is basically just grinding moto drafts. And like a couple of the big name trophy winners, I saw them tweet, maybe their point of view has changed over the past week and a half or whatever, but their point of view is like, green's great, love it, here's a mono green deck I've drafted, and then like replying in the thread like, yeah, just drafted mono green again, it's great, final partings and mushroom dogs.
If everybody's staying out of green, then you get lots of green.
Yeah, it reminds me, I mean, I'm going to quote I'm going to mention a draft environment that is widely seen as pretty bad, and it's not perfect, but you got two of its biggest fans in the room right now. Avacyn Restored.
Love Avacyn
Restored.
Yep.
And that's a format where you would hear that mentioned a lot of like this color, like you have to be green X in AVR. Because I mean, look at Druid's Familiar. How do you ever beat this? There's no removal. But like that format ended up, I mean, that is true that green is the best color and Druid's Familiar is, the best uncommon.
We can't show it to you right now because the Moonbase still is actually, at time of recording, still without internet. But Druid's Familiar, correct me if I'm wrong, 2/2 bear for 2 and a green?
3 and a green.
Oh, it is 4 mana. Yeah. All right. It's a 2/2 bear. For 4 mana with Soul Bond, and then it and the bonded creature. It's the way Soul Bond works. Welcome to AVR. It comes into play. You pick a creature, and then they are bonded. And as long as they are bonded, they, in this case, each of them gets +2/+2. Right. Yeah. And then if either of them dies, then then the remaining one loses that +2/+2. But
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that was a good card.
Yeah, I mean, that was a format where you would have people saying, like, you can't draft black. Like, there was a mono black deck in that format that was actually quite good, because if everybody else was like, you can't have black, like, why would you play Bone Splitters? Like, Death Wind's too slow. Not to turn this into an AVR podcast, but...
Bone Splitters goes really well with Undead Butcher.
Goes great with Undead Butcher. It goes great with just like sacrificing one of your 2-drops to get it back with I call it Dragula. Driver of the Dead.
Oh, yeah.
It's I think that's its name, right? It's
Yeah,
4
Driver of
mana,
the Dead.
3/2. When
Yep.
it comes into play, you return a creature with 2 mana value or less from your graveyard to play.
Yeah, it's so good.
And returning turn timber guides with that is pretty good. Like you get what I'm trying to say, I guess. Apologies to the card reader. I didn't expect to go this ham on AVR cards. But yeah, it's just like every time this pops up where people say like, oh, this one color is so bad, you should never draft it. Turns out there's a lot of nuance to actually drafting the sets, and that often you will have players that, admittedly have a bit of familiarity with the environment. They'll be like, hey, wait a minute. Actually, this color kicks ass. Mm-hmm. Thanks for not picking these cards.
So, what is it about Lord of the Rings that you're just not, to use the parlance of today, that you're not vibing with?
I mean, I already talked for a long time, but if you want, I could say that I experienced something of an epiphany.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And this is going to sound like a wild thing to say, but as somebody that plays Magic and is washed up, but does this for a living, I don't think I like Limited enough to play formats like this and otherwise, just for the sake of playing them. I used to like spite hit Mythic for
Right.
formats I didn't like and see if it's like, am I the problem or is the set the problem? And I kind of just like, no, I don't need to do this anymore. And I think I hit that pretty easily with Lord of the Rings. Just, I don't find the gameplay with the commons and uncommons too interesting. I don't find the rares that appealing.
Really?
The color
I found some
combinations.
absolutely wild lines of play doing this. Then I'm just sort of like, oh, wow, look at this cool thing that I didn't think I would be able to do because of there's so many words on these cards. There's so many words. Like, I've found this a very interesting and challenging format.
Yeah, no, every time I play it, I feel like I wish I was doing something else with my time. It hits a very odd spot of like not powerful enough to really capture my attention, but like the power level of the cards isn't flat enough for me to be like, hell yeah, we're all just smashing idiots into each other, and hopefully the numbers line up.
Wild.
Yeah.
Huh. Cool. All right. Interesting. The actually, before I start asking other questions, Cameron, what's been your sort of, I mean, again, I'll just say vibes with this format?
It's one where I have found that, and this is going to sound petty and unadaptive and old.
Oh, we never
Now
get
we're talking
we
Magic.
never get petty on
But,
this
like-
show. Bring it on.
It just sucks to have your opponent like on the ropes and then for them to like flop some mythic and lose. Right? Mm-hmm. Like battle your opponent down, have them down to like, I don't know, 3 arbitrarily, some low amount of life. They're on no cards in hand. You have not you should have them, and then they're like, oh, Sauron, lol, you lose. And it feels like there's a lot of cards in this format that do that, and there is a lot of interaction, but a lot of it also fails to do what you need it to do, if that makes any sense.
I did have an opponent stabilize at 3, which was impressive to me because they had a 1 ring with 3, whatever they're called, temptation counters on it. And beginning of your upkeep, burden counter, yeah. It had 3 burden counters on it. So every upkeep, they were losing 3 life. So you'd think they wouldn't be able to stabilize at 3, but they had drawn most of their deck, including Lembas. And so every turn they were just like
eating Lembas, putting it back in the right.
Eat the bread, put the bread back in the library. Eat the bread, put the bread back in the library while they're
right, the Hobbit centipede.
While they punch my they punch my kidneys. And I was like, oh, wow. That's, if only Sauron had some nice bread, I guess.
Yeah.
It was very funny. But yeah, that didn't feel great. But on the other hand, I was like, yeah, you know what? You did the thing. Good job. Yeah. I don't know. Like what? What did you both make of the last couple draft formats? Because I was like, I think we were trucking along at the 7.5s, like you said. I think we were doing really well. And then for draft, your mileage may vary depending on what formats you use these cards in. Phyrexia All Will Be One was quite a nosedive, I would say.
Yeah.
But then conversely, I thought March of the Machine was great. I loved playing March of the Machine.
Yeah, I enjoyed March of the Machine as well. I think my favorite in the last couple of years was Kamigawa Neon Dynasty.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And
Wheeler's grinning.
I have a very hot take about Kamigawa Neon Dynasty.
please
Do it.
So I think that format is more beloved for how cool it feels to play with the cards than the actual quality of the gameplay itself.
Oh.
I think that the gameplay in that
Finally, some
in
hot takes on
triple
Tap Concede.
yeah. I think that the gameplay, and before you say anything, I hit top mythic in that draft format. So
Out of spite.
well, no, that one I hit because I was enjoying it.
Oh.
But I enjoy playing Yu-Gi-Oh as well. Like I like the spots where I'm like, oh my god, they can't do anything. You fool! Like you should have blocked. Why didn't you block? Pump spell. Like I do enjoy parts of that. That's not my preferred style of Magic. I like interacting with people, but it does feel good, right? It feels good to have like Sekenzen Smelter on the play, or to just like draft the deck with all the Fang of Shigeki, like 1 mana Death Touchers, and
Like I liked the blue black ninjas. I liked the sort of the red base, probably red black, like artifact sacrifice thing. I liked 4 or 5 color kind of quasi base green nonsense. Right. Not even shrines, just like there was a very good like multicolor bizarre thing with like geothermal commies bouncing your sagas and stuff.
And that feels so big brain, right?
Yeah.
And that's a thing they don't let you do anymore. Like they, everything, that kind of play pattern of like cycling Era of Enlightenment, the saga that gains you life and scries with your geothermal commie and replaying it and getting all this value, that gives the feeling of like back in my day we used to loop Gravediggers. Now we can't because they always exile themselves when they die or whatever. So Kamigawa to me felt like a people pleaser format. You either got to just smush people or accept that it's your time to be the nail as they're the hammer. Or you got to do some big brain like, oh my god, how am I getting away with this?
Right.
And that's great. That feels good. But if you look at it as like a gameplay pattern, it's like, haha, you're dead before you could get off the ground. Or like, oh, you missed your 2-drop, so you lose this game. I mean, I'm oversimplifying everything. Right. Or just like, oh, cool, I can't punch through this wall, and my opponent is now like drawing 2 cards a turn, and my creatures perpetually have -2, -0. And, neat. Thanks. Yeah, it's but it's great. Like I would draft Kamigawa in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And also just be like, I shouldn't be getting away with this. It has that joy of like broken games from your childhood.
Right.
So how did you feel about Phyrexia and March of the Machine?
I found Mom to be pretty meh. Like it was okay. The bonus sheet wasn't that bad. I like bonus sheets.
Me too.
I think that's the thing, is that Magic, like, we are now spoiled with these bonus sheets because they add this level to the draft environment where, like, on one hand, I worry that it's going to become this thing that might affect other people that really like limited, where they're like, oh, no bonus sheet. Okay, I guess I'll play it. But yeah, the bonus sheet wasn't that bad.
I think
neat.
they did a really good job with the one for Mom, especially because I remember seeing when they were spoiling the stuff of what was on the sheet. There was the Rada, I can't remember which one. It's the one from Dominaria United, so it's recent, and it was sort of, I saw some people be like, "Why this Rada? Why not the there's like 3 or 4 different Radas they could have chosen, right?" And it's like, well, because this is the one that taps to, like, when it gets tapped, you pump something, and March of the Machine has Convoke in it. So it's like they thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh yeah, all right, cool.
Yeah. I didn't mind, like, Mom was okay. I didn't lose my mind over it. I can't remember any of my one drafts outside of the Fam Jam.
Yeah, one was, it was just, like, turns out poison counters make for very aggressive games.
Yeah. Put a lot of white in that format. I remember that.
I remember at MagicCon this would have been Philly, there was like the sealed event, right? And it's like, well, I didn't open any good or big or powerful cards, but I did get an awful lot of red and white cards that cost 2 mana, so we're gonna do that and just raced under everybody else. So it's like there was options there, but yeah, one was definitely like, if you're not doing something on turn 2, ideally you're doing something on turn 1, but if you're not doing anything on turn 2, you basically lost this game already, right? And then I also didn't love New Capenna. I don't know. To me, like, I think, like you say, I think like the cruising at 7.5 has been pretty true for a while, and then for me personally, at least, big dips on Streets of New Capenna, which is a shame because I love the world and the art style and all that stuff, but the actual draft experience I found pretty miserable, because they're more so than I think most of the other ones that we've talked about. That one felt like there was always, every game of draft for Streets of New Capenna felt like there was a single inflection point after which there was no recovery. That it was just like there's one counter spell or one removal spell or one mythic resolved, where it was just like, oh, okay, there's literally nothing I can do now. Everything just starts rolling away from me, which I didn't find fun. And then Phyrexia was just too goddamn fast. So that's why I enjoyed March of the Machine quite a bit more. And I don't know, this one just feels, I don't know, Lord of the Rings just sort of feels kind of chill.
Maybe I'm just a quirked up Eternal player. But what you said there, of like it felt like there was a single point of like this action was taken, and I was just too far behind to ever make any meaningful like commitment to the board to survive, or even like try to win. I feel that way over every single format in Magic that doesn't have free spells anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, like I feel like, not to make a broad, like, complaining on Twitter-esque comment, but yeah, I feel like formats, be it limited or constructed, where you do not have access to a Solitude, a Force of Will, or an Endurance or whatever. Yeah, there is always that point of just like, oh, okay, it's not my turn to play. I get it.
I guess I felt more so that in other formats you're able to sort of, I don't know, scrap your way back.
Yeah,
and in New Capenna, I felt like I never, ever could do that.
Yeah, some of them you have the out of your opponent bricking, which is just like not a great out to have.
No.
Like that doesn't feel that good on either side of the table. But yeah, some formats it's less of an issue than others. Like some limited environments, it's less of an issue than others.
What are you saying, Cameron?
Well, I was just going to say that, like, I think my theory of this is that I really enjoy playing the set's mechanics. Right? If I'm playing a limited environment, then I'm kind of here to play that limited environment. And WotC has gotten quite good at making all of the decks kind of hum at the common and uncommon level. Mm-hmm. So, if I'm playing Lord of the Rings Limited and I've put together, I don't know, the Elven Scrying deck.
Right.
Most of that occurs at kind of like the common and uncommon levels. And then it just disintegrates when every rare in the format is Elish Norn. Right? Like you'll be doing great, and then all of a sudden your opponent can just flop, I don't know, some mythic, and you die. And it feels bad. Right? It's like, oh, well, I guess I didn't play around this card. Mm-hmm. But it feels like there's 40 these cards. and it makes me kind of feel like a sucker for trying to play the mechanic when I could be doing something else.
Like, oh yeah. So we see the
Why does it do damage?
we see Orcish Bowmasters on screen here. 1 and a black for a 1/1 Orc Archer with Flash. When it enters the battlefield, and whenever an opponent draws a card except for the first one they draw on each of their draw steps, Orcish Bowmasters deals 1 damage to any target, then amass Orcs 1. On stream the other day, we got to do, this is not necessarily related to this being a good format or not. I just wanted to share this big brain play that we got to do. I'm pretty sure someone in chat brought it up first, but Kathleen was playing this, and the opponent tried to, I can't remember exactly what they were trying to do. I think sacrificing a creature to make their Ugg look larger, and then also they were going to amass. Oh, that's what it was. It was Mordor Muster that they cast. Ooh. So flash in Orcish Bowmasters, hold full control. Pro tip for those of you at home, and then cast Shelob's Ambush, targeting the Bowmasters to give them Death Touch because they're the ones dealing the damage.
Yeah,
right.
So that just pinged an Ugluk, let the Mordor Muster resolve, and pinged the army, and then suddenly the opponent's got no board.
This card's really good, by the way.
Shelob's Ambush is also great.
I think it's one of the most underrated. Like, this is the kind of, I mean, I'm trying to draft a black deck most of the time.
Plus
so
2
I'm playing
toughness.
This. Yeah. It just, this type of card is traditionally seen as pretty bad, but this in particular, like it's a protection spell. It's a haha got you spell. It's a, oh, you thought you were racing me, but now I'm +3 life and got rid of your blocker and my thing survived. It's just, it does so much heavy lifting for a 1 mana like combat trick that you always just kind of have to think about. Like people get got by the 2 mana variations of just like lifelink or death touch. There's one in this, like the Rush of Vitality style cards. Orcish Medicine is, I think, what it's called. That's the kind of card that people are often more worried about because that feels like it's such a blowout where it's like, oh, my thing's indestructible and it kills your thing. Or like, now my creature is bigger and this has lifelink. So now I'm gaining life and my thing survives, so I can hit you for so much more on the crackback. Where like Shelob's Ambush does a lot of the same things that Orcish Medicine does, just it at 1 mana up front, and then the life gain comes at a later time, and also makes it permanent that if you're like white black or black green, you can then use that food token to, I don't know, send Shivam at people.
Right.
Right. So, okay, yeah, sorry, I can't remember where we're going with that. But
what I wanted to say was just that this isn't really anything to do with gameplay, but it's more the vibe of the set, is that I understand why there's 7 versions of every character.
Right.
Right, because, you know, it's a story.
You're covering this epic span of time.
Yeah, and like, sure, Frodo goes through various... He has events that occur in the course of the novels, and he's not the same person at the beginning that he is in the middle, and he's not the same person in the middle that he is at the end. So it's kind of organic. But like, some of them don't feel that smooth, right? Like, I'm thinking of Mary, who goes from a food centric card to like, he completely shifts color. It's not... When I put it like that, yeah, he goes like, he picks up red. He goes from green to red to, or no, Pippin goes from green to, what am I even thinking of here?
Well, they both go from mono
green to
white
X white. Yeah.
I mean,
and I guess maybe I'm just old and I'm constantly confused. Which Pippin is this? Because it feels like their abilities... that maybe this is just poking holes in color identity and the way that Magic cards have to kind of like play within the color within their own lines, literally, right? That what feels like an organic movement in the novels is much more jarring here. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else.
No, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, I I don't know how much, although I think you even admitted it at the top of this, is that I don't know how much that impacts like the actual game play, but the way that you kind of take in the knowledge of the cards.
Yeah.
There's a real whiplash
Yes.
where, yeah, you'll have you'll have a Bilbo. I guess Bilbo's a bad example, but you have a card from 10 years ago. Like a card in the story from this is the starting point of Fellowship. And then here's him 10 years ago and he's a different color, which is like, okay, I guess. But then also here's the card, the third point of this card, and then it's two more. Yeah, Gandalf. I mean, Gandalf, this guy dies. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, yeah. Like, Gandalf, it makes sense for me.
Yeah.
Right? And this is something that's been happening to planeswalkers and legendary creatures in Magic for 20 years. Longer. And it's fine. It just happens in the course of one set here. And I find it abrupt, I guess.
Right.
And I don't think there's any particularly easy fix for this. And probably, there were arguments about this exact thing happening.
I got it.
What?
Oh.
Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, The Aftermath.
Boy, that product didn't serve any of the goals they were trying to...
What product?
March of the Machine Aftermath?
Not familiar with it.
Okay. It feels like they were trying to do a bunch of stuff with it, and it didn't seem to accomplish any of those things.
Yeah, well, I'm a swing and a miss, right? Like, I don't begrudge anyone for, making an effort and trying something different and it not connecting. But I don't know. Maybe it's just that I'm bad at this format. I'm not the best Magic player, but I post W's. And this one continues to elude me in ways that are big and dramatic. And maybe that's just feel bads and hurt feelings.
Well, I think it's interesting regardless. I'm glad that we, I'm glad we talked it through. I sound like therapy. No, I'm glad that it's neat to, at least I think it was neat to sort of talk this through because, generally we do we are all kind of oh yeah, this format's great, or this format's all right, So it's interesting to have because I frankly am very much enjoying this format. So it's interesting to have this back and forth of it's neat to talk about slightly differing opinions, he said controversially.
And none of us are swearing at each other.
What?
Yeah. That's incredible.
I could.
I'll have to go and put everyone on blast with a YouTube video later, I guess.
Oh, yeah, the comment sections. It's going to be great.
We'll
yeah, so much engagement.
Yeah.
I'm already spending the millions.
One more thing before we take off. Wanted to mention that for the first time ever, Loading Ready Run is coming to Europe. A bunch of us, though of the three of us here, just myself, are coming to MagicCon Barcelona. We're very excited about that. Myself and Kathleen and James and Serge and Ben and Nelson will all be at MagicCon Barcelona, and we've got a couple different, I think 2 different Chaos events, if I am remembering correctly, and signing blocks on all 3 days, and hope to see you there if you're in the neighborhood. The neighborhood, I guess, being Europe. I don't know. You got trains. You got such nice transit over there.
Yeah, if y'all can be like, hey, I have a friend in Toronto. Can you go pick him up at the airport? We can be like, you can hop a Euro from Paris.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely. Hope to see some folks there at MagicCon Barcelona. Like I said, it's the first time. I mean, I've been to the UK a bunch. I've never actually been to mainland Europe, but this is certainly the first time that Loading Ready Run is doing anything on that side of the Atlantic. So, very excited for that. Mm-hmm. For now, though, I think that's going to do it for Tap Tap Concede. Really appreciate everyone tuning in and listening. A reminder, of course, the show is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Check out cardkingdom.com/LRR and Everything we do is brought to you by you and your support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Thank you all so much for joining us. Until then being next time. Until next time, I have been Graham, joined by Cameron and Wheeler.
Thank you for having me. What the hell? Why does the One Ring exist?
Oh, yeah, that was found, too. Someone in Toronto found it.
Oh, I'm just going to go hop over and pick them up.
Sounds great. Kathleen's been running tech. Heather gets these online. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll talk to you all next time. Bye-bye.